Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Impact Code podcast. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would encourage you to subscribe to become a part of the community. I'm thrilled today to introduce our guest, Ntsiki Mkhize. Ntsiki is a founder and chief social entrepreneur of MentHer, which is a global mentorship network supporting young female social entrepreneurs. And I'm thrilled to have her here with me. Ntsiki, good morning to you. I hope that you are doing well.
Good morning, Paris, and good morning to all your listeners, or good afternoon, whatever time people are listening in from. But an absolute pleasure to be joining you. Thanks for the invitation to have this awesome conversation.
No, awesome, and thrilled to have you here with us. And typically we start by getting to know you a little bit. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of where you were born and where you grew up?
So I come from a very interesting background. So my mom used to live on a farm. So initially when I was born, I lived with my mom's parents on a farm. And then I moved to Joburg and we lived in the hood. Then we moved to the burbs. And then I think that I was 13 years old or something. My dad moved us to a farm out in the south of Joburg. I'm in the Midval. So I've essentially grown up on a farm most of my life. I still live on a farm today. And I quite enjoy it. I mean, it's a live for a mission coming in and out of the city, but it's quite nice to be able to go back home and there is silence and you can have fresh air and you can see the stars and clear your mind. It's like every day is a retreat, you know what I mean? So that's a real pleasure. And I think that's also created an environment for me to kind of have a separate perspective out of the world that I exist in, which allows me to externally think about solutions and then see how we can go about implementing them and making a difference. I think that plays a big part of how I show up in the world and just my own personal centeredness. And it's also led to me being a farmer as well. So I started farming garlic this year, so we will see how it goes.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I must admit, I sometimes have a yearning for the farm life. When I spend too much time in the city, so I can imagine it's really good. I think to get a bit of quiet and I'm sure it helps with. And I love what you said about centeredness. I think that's really profound and really lovely. You're a very busy person. I've seen, I've followed you on social media for some time, and I see that you're quite a busy person. I'm quite curious, how do you unwind?
I live on a farm, so that counts as unwinding. But also, interestingly, I do find I have the blessing that I get to do what I love and what I'm passionate about. So I find that even when I'm working on proposals, at the moment I'm writing a book, that those are moments where I unwind. So when I'm done with MentHer stuff and I'm done looking at farming stuff and I'm done looking at this clean energy project that I just got roped into, that I kind of, sit back and I go, oh yes, I'm writing a book, and I kind of enjoy taking that time out to write. I also read a lot. So really in my quiet times, in those moments when I just get stuck into a good book, and yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think to at least have that wonderful balance, I think is really good, and the fact that you do what you love, I think really does help quite a lot. And your work has taken you to lots of different parts of the world. I'm quite curious which city has captured your heart other than your hometown.
It's so great that you asked me that, because I'm actually in the process of trying to figure out how I can live in a new country every 3 months. So that's what I really love to do. Like, that's kind of like my mission at the moment. And I had the opportunity to go to Kenya earlier on this year, and I think that's like a really great hub to be based in. I also had the opportunity to go study in Glasgow. And one of the key reasons why I chose to go study in Glasgow is because they have a really good social entrepreneurship ecosystem from government, from corporate, as well as social enterprises that exist in the community. So it was a great environment to go and learn in. But I mean, apart from the weather, that's my one deterrent toward going back there. But I think being in those kinds of spaces really creates opportunities to learn even more about how different solutions can be implemented, especially in a good ecosystem where government has created an enabling environment.
Yeah, and I think it's really fascinating. I'd love to see that. That's quite an amazing goal, for you to be able to do that every 3 months. That's awesome. I look forward to seeing all of the adventures that you go through. And Ntsiki, I think to really talk through what we want to get to today. I want to talk about the importance of mentorship and purpose, and shaping a career. And I guess we can start with mentorship. Talk to me about why you think mentorship is important, particularly, I guess, in a young person's career.
So in 2019, I had the opportunity to self-publish my first book titled My Hall of Mentors. And when I wrote that book, it was off the back of having done Miss South Africa. So I was Miss South Africa in 2015, and then I ended up having a show on Business Day TV, and then I was on some list of like top 20 young people to watch for, whatever. And so it was a bunch of stuff that had been happening parallel behind the scenes, but I think all kind of culminated at the same moment. And so I found a lot of young ladies were asking me on social media, like, hey, how do you become successful? And it kind of sounded like they thought that I just woke up one day and everything was, top tier. And what they missed was the grind behind the scenes. And at that point, I was, kind of sitting down to write this book. I'd had 7 years of incredible mentors who had guided me on my journey, and they had helped me figure out, what was my purpose, where did I want to play, what kinds of things did I want to add value in, what did I want to use my talents towards. And these were people who were my lecturers at university, the CEO of the first job that I ever had, like the guy who ran the company. It was a small business, so he was accessible. It was a friend that I started a business with. It was the first social enterprise that I worked for, and the founder of that social enterprise. And then two of my mentors were women that I met through Miss South Africa. But I wanted to illustrate to people that you don't have to be famous or important or in certain circles to have access to mentors. I also list my parents and my grandmother as mentors. So we all have these people around us who are constantly guiding us, who have advice that we can really learn from, who have feedback that if we take and utilize it properly, can help propel us forward. So for me, it's very important to have mentors. And a quote that I like to use is by John C. Crosby. And he says that a mentor is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. And so you have to have those people in your space that can create a helicopter view of where you're at and where you want to go, who believe in you, who believe in the greatness that you can accomplish, and are constantly encouraging you in that direction, but also equipping you to be able to do things for yourself, not just motivators, but people who are helping you action in the direction of whatever your personal success looks like. And I talk about success as being a journey because I don't believe that we arrive at successful. I think different seasons are successful based on different things. If you're going through a period and you're struggling to get out of bed, waking up on a certain day is success. If you're just passing your exams, like that is success. If you do get that check, that's success as well, but not to live just on the highs as being successful. So when you're starting out in your career as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, having those people that can help you maintain a clear perspective, get clarity on where you want to go, support you, and encourage you on that journey, as well as help you maintain some kind of balance, is really valuable.
Yeah, super important, and love the quote about brain to pick and ear to listen and push in the right direction. I love that. That's awesome, and I think you're quite right. It's extremely valuable and probably something which we don't think about clearly as much as we should. And I guess to talk about a word that you mentioned and I mentioned as well as purpose. How do you advise young people to find their purpose? And what role does mentorship really play in that?
So how I define purpose, well, not how I define purpose, how the dictionary defines purpose is the reason for which something is done, for which something exists, or for which something is created, So when I talk to people about finding purpose, I go like, go back to the very genesis of who you are as a person. And if you have a faith or belief system, what informs your beliefs in life. So why were you created? Like, what do you exist? What do you exist to do, right? And start answering questions. And when I do coaching sessions, a tool that I like to use for that is the Ikigai. So getting people to answer 4 key questions, which is what are you good at doing? So everything that you've ever learned to do that you're naturally talented at, that you've studied, that you work in, whatever it is. What do you love to do? So make an entire list of things that you're passionate about, because as people, we're all moved by different things, right? Then make a list of everything that you see as a problem in the world. So things that you feel like, what do people need? Where's the gap? Why are people not solving this? And that's also important because we identify pain points differently as individuals. And then making a list of things that people are willing to pay for. And somewhere there in the middle is something that you're good at doing, that you love to do, that people need and someone is willing to pay for. And I think that's a great place to start if you're studying and you're thinking about what kind of corporate do I want to work with, what kind of values do I want the company that I work for to have, or if you're an entrepreneur starting your own business, going, okay, what am I passionate about, what am I good at doing, and how can I convert that into a business that I can run every day that makes me excited. And then I think the aspect of mentors comes in once you've kind of figured that out, is that you can find people who've done similar stuff. So if you go like, I'm interested in private equity, but I don't know any private equity people who care about social impact. Then you start your search and you go online, you go onto LinkedIn and you go, where are the private equity firms that have social impact? ESG measures is a key part of what they do. And then you find people in that space and you ask them to be your mentors. So once you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, or even if you've set your goals, and you've set your goals across different segments of your life, and you're really cool, I'm pretty good at this stuff, but there's a huge gap over here. Finding somebody that you think has the skills or has the accomplishments that can help you fill those gaps as well is important. And that's how mentors sort of help you bridge where you are and where you have the potential to go.
Yeah, really, really profound. And I think, I love the 4 key questions. I think it's really a really good way to dig into what, your purpose is and why, it's really, really important to do that. And in that context, I know you spoke a little bit about, where sort of the mentor story began, but maybe tell us a little bit about MentHer in terms of what it is that you do. And, I guess as well, where people can find out a little bit more about it and get in touch.
Awesome. So, I've worked for like maybe 2 years in my entire career, and the rest of it I've been an entrepreneur and figuring out my own path. But I've had the lovely opportunity to work with corporates, to work with nonprofits, to work with entrepreneurs on in different scenarios. And something that often came up when I was in South Africa was women would always say to me, hey, I really struggle to find mentors, like I don't know where to go to find these people. And I was like, okay, cool. And then when I went to Scotland to go do my master's in social innovation, I went to a couple of women business entrepreneurship networking events. And when we spoke about mentorship, I heard the exact same things. And women would say to me, oh, I can't find mentors, I struggle to find a mentor. And it wasn't just the fact that these people didn't exist necessarily. Part of it was sometimes that the person that I can ask thinks I'm their competition, so they don't want to help me, right? Which was very specific for women coming from certain backgrounds. So like, in a certain community, there's only 2 of us who do this thing, or in a social impact scenario where the solution is very tailored to that market and only 2 people have thought about it, so the person who could potentially help. It's a little reserved about it. And so I was like, this should not be a problem that exists. So when I first created MentHer, the concept was to say, how do we connect women to mentors, that can help them? But also from a country context, I realized that Scotland has a lot of similar social challenges as South Africa does. Their approach to solving them is different, and I thought, how amazing would it be if, a woman trying to solve homelessness in South Africa could talk to a woman addressing the same issue in Glasgow, and they could cross-pollinate ideas, So that was kind of the thinking when we first started. And now we've grown and we've got our membership community, which is the Social Impact Founders Club. And we've got a freemium and a premium subscription. And, within our network, you have access to experts who come in as mentors and they host masterclasses. We have a monthly skills webinar every month where we unpack, certain aspects around creating and building up your own startup and creating impact in your business. There's access to peer mentors. If you're part of the VIP package, you get access to one-on-one coaching every month. So, specifically working through your business. And, we've got access to great tools on the market, So we use the Growth Wheel tool, for example, for business planning, which offers a 360 view. And we've got our MentHer magazine, which I became editor-in-chief of by chance, because initially when we started, I found that a lot of the work I was doing was educational. So I was teaching people about social entrepreneurship, raising awareness. And I was like, let's just create a magazine so people can read about it. And I think that kind of came back as there's actually a huge gap in the market. And it's not just entrepreneurs that want to read about it, but it's just young professionals as well. So now we run a whole magazine. And then annually we have our Social Impact Summit, that our first one in December last year. So the next one is coming up this November during Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we're growing from there, so we've kind of spent 2 years solidifying our base. We've got a network of 250 female social entrepreneurs, most 80% of them in South Africa and some in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, the US and the UK. And the next steps for us is to then support our community to gain access to markets, gain access to networks, and gain access to funding, which is a huge thing for, I think, every entrepreneur.
Really, really inspirational. And I think I would encourage, anybody who is listening to this to go and check it out. I think it's really, really inspirational. I think the work that you're doing is incredible, and no doubt, really making a difference, in the lives of people. And finally, Ntsiki, I wanted to ask you, how would you say that you make an impact in your world?
That's an interesting question, because I think all the work that I do is impact related, so as a coach, as a consultant, as a facilitator, as a speaker, as an MC, as an entrepreneur, the projects that I take on for me always have to be in some way aligned to creating impact, so my brain is very geared around impact. So I kind of almost do that naturally. I think the question I ask myself most of the time is this enough? Is this enough impact, And, how do you measure what is enough? And having to accept that you can't impact the whole world, so that idea of just touching one person's life is good enough. And then I go, okay, but we can create a system where it's more than one, right? We can touch a community, or we can impact a region. But yeah, I think, in the work that I do, just always making sure that I'm focusing my efforts and energy towards supporting women to start their own businesses, supporting communities to figure out how to be more sustainable, and engaging in projects that will be impactful and meaningful in the African continent in our future going forward.
Yeah, and I think really it is the impact that you make, really cascades. I think it cascades down to not just the individuals that you interact with, but the families, the people in their communities, their friends, and so on. So I think your impact is definitely not to be underestimated. And thank you for coming onto the podcast, Ntsiki. And I really appreciate you sharing your insights. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope it's also been a good journey for you to reflect a little bit on the wonderful work that you're doing. But yeah, from us at Impact, I just want to say thank you, and I hope that you've enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Professor. It's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you, and everyone's taking the time to listen. Thank you so much, much appreciated. But also, please do connect with me on social media and also head over to our mentor page, mentor_int on Instagram, and our website, www.menther.co.za. You can find all the information there about how to get the magazine and how to join the social media if you're interested.
Absolutely, supported on that, and would encourage every single one of our listeners to do that. And we'll definitely share those links with the podcast release. And to you, the listener, thank you so much for once again listening in on episode 42. We hope that you've been impacted, no doubt, by the wonderful insights that Ntsiki has shared and the wonderful work that she does. Please do check out MentHer, and please do reach out to Ntsiki on social media as well. But from Ntsiki and myself, we want to say thank you so much and goodbye.